Hi, welcome to Women in Focus. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we're excited about going on and reading the scriptures regarding the genealogy of Christ. So, I hope you have something to write on, something to write with, and of course have your Bibles with you so you can read along with me. Sometimes you miss a lot of things and we're just listening, but if we're reading along, we can catch it as well. So please, let's continue in the genealogy of Christ in Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Matthew chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Okay? The record of the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon. Verse 5, Salmon was the father of Boaz by Rahab. Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse. All right, so we've been asking the question and answering the question, who is Ruth? How is she tied into the genealogy of Jesus? And I've been telling you erroneously to go back to the 7th book of the Bible, Ruth. Well, I miscounted, and it's actually the 8th book of the Bible, of the Old Testament. And I didn't realize that till just this week. So please turn to Ruth chapter 3. We have already read all of chapter 1, and we have also taught from chapter 2, and now we're going to be in chapter 3. So we have come to an understanding that Ruth can possibly marry a kinsman, redeemer, and we know that from chapter 1 and 2, and now we're going to see how Naomi instructs her daughter-in-law Ruth, regarding Boaz, okay? So here we go. It's Ruth chapter 3, starting with verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you?" Just to remind us that back in chapter 1, verse 9, this word security came up, and it's translated in Hebrew to mean a physical security that women could obtain through marriage. So this is what the end game is. It's not a game, but this is going to be the result of all of this instruction, everything that Ruth is going through, and being in as part of the family where she has a right to a kinsman redeemer through Naomi. So, verse 2. Now is not Boaz our kinsman, with whose maids you were? Behold, he winnows barley at the threshing floor tonight, So this is part of what Naomi is doing for Ruth. She has taken on the role as being an instrument to possibly have Boaz and Ruth married. So there's a lot of things to be done prior to getting to that point. So these instructions are continued to Ruth by Naomi. In verse 3, "Wash yourself, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking." So, Naomi's instructions to Ruth after the decision to seek safety for Ruth shows that Naomi hoped that Boaz, given the opportunity, would marry Ruth. These preparations are similar to those of a bride. So you can see that in excuse me, in Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 8 and 9. Okay, let's continue. Verses 4 and 5. It shall be when he lies down, you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what you shall do. Verse 5, she said to her, all that you say I will do. Ruth's statement reveals absolute confidence in her mother-in-law's good judgment. So what kind of instruction is this? It sounds so crazy, and yet it's not so crazy, not in these days, not in those times. And Ruth is totally putting her trust in her mother-in-law. So you got the instruction, right? She's supposed to find where he lies down. When he lies down, then she's supposed to go and lie down at his feet. Okay? So she's supposed to physically uncover his feet where he is, and then she's supposed to lie down at his feet. Okay, so it's more interesting. Verse 6. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law had commanded her. When Boaz had eaten and drunk till his heart was merry, he went to lay down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came, Ruth, came secretly and uncovered his feet and lay down. So the fact that Boaz drank until when his heart was merry, it means that he basically partied. He wasn't there just to protect his crop. He was there because he celebrated the success of his harvest. So here is Ruth coming in secretly. So Ruth went into the threshing floor at night to talk secretly with Boaz without anybody noticing. Remember, those were the instructions from her mother-in-law. So thus avoiding the speculations of others. Boaz was away from others near his pile of grain. So Ruth uncovered his feet. So in other words, she went to where he was laying down and she lifted the blanket or the cloak or whatever was covering his feet, and then she laid at his feet. In this symbolic act, she placed herself in Boaz's custody and protection. There are no sexual implications in this action. This is very important. There's nothing sexual going on. But Ruth would have put herself in a difficult situation if Boaz had been a man without honor. So Ruth's action shows that she trusted Boaz's good character. That's a lot to take in, isn't it? I mean, you have faith in your mother-in-law and you have faith in this man, and there's nothing sexual going on, but all of this is to it's an action. They're actions by a bride to be, possibly. All right, let's see if it comes to pass. All right. So in verse 8, yes, let's go to verse 8. It happened in the middle of the night that the man was startled and bent forward, and behold, a woman was lying at his feet. When he said he was startled, I mean, it was, the keyword indicates that it was terror. He didn't know what to think. He just was beside himself. Boaz surely woke up frightened when he discovered a woman at his feet. I don't think this was a daily thing. I don't think it was done very often, and definitely never had been done to Boaz. But here he is finding a woman at his feet. I would be scared too, I think. All right, so verse 9. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your maid. So spread your covering over your maid, for you are a close relative." Wow. Okay, so with this, Ruth asked Boaz to marry her. What a proposal. Can you imagine? Very untypical, yes? Very untypical. Okay, so um, Ruth asked Boaz to fulfill his duty to the Levirate law to be her kinsman redeemer. Remember, we're going to review this again. It bears repeating. This we saw in chapter 1, and we saw it also with Tamar. But when there's a widow that doesn't have children, there is a right for her to marry a brother. If there's no brother, then the nearest, the closest relative to them, to the husband that died, so that she can have children. And that way, her husband then has an heir. So, this is all about this marriage law. This is so important. And now Boaz is the possible kinsman redeemer. All right, so verse 10. Then he said, may you be blessed of the Lord. Capital L-O-R-D. Remember, that means the Shaddai, El Shaddai. So the God of Israel. So then he said, may you be blessed of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown your last kindness to be better than the first by not going after young men, whether poor or rich. Verse 11. Now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you whatever you ask. For all my people in the city know that you are a woman of excellence. In another translation, says a virtuous woman, like in Proverbs 31. So this phrase that he recognizes Ruth's character and her status as the widow that she is. So this same Hebrew expression, Kayil, is used to describe the woman in Proverbs 31, 10 through 31. So that's the virtuous woman. So this is all that Boaz says. He has heard how she's left her land, her family, and she's now a child of God, believes in the same God of Israel, and she has proved it over and over with her loyalty to her mother-in-law. She said, your God will be my God, and this has been a known fact. So Boaz is recognizing all that Ruth has done, and he is blessing her for all that she's done and all the kindness she has shown to her mother-in-law. So, now in verse 12. Now it is true. Now, it is true. I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Ooh, remember, in chapter 2, verse 20, we reviewed what the close relative was, and it's the Hebrew word gawal. Remember? Gawal. And it's often translated redeemer. Remember, I have a big smile because of the redeemer. It reminds me of Jesus redeeming us. Well, this is a picture of like a Christ. Of course, no, Boaz is not Christ, but it's a picture of what was to come, what Jesus was to become as he came to redeem the human race. So, the Redeemer, first of all, was a close relative. First of all, a brother. And we know that Ruth's brother-in-law had also died. So there was nobody else. There was no other brother in line so that Ruth could marry. So if there was no brother, then some close relative. So the law prescribed 3 functions of the Redeemer. Remember, It was one, to buy the freedom of the Israelite who had been sold into slavery due to financial difficulties. Number two, it was to buy the property of an Israelite who had been forced to sell it out of financial need. And three, it was to avenge the murder of an Israelite. Okay, so Boaz, in view of his position as Goel, the closest relative to Naomi, and his generosity to Ruth in the field, could be a strong help for both women, right? So we also talked about that Boaz was a type of Christ in three different ways. Again, bears repeating, all right? So first of all, Christ is a relative of the human race. And secondly, by being the Son of God and without sin, Christ can redeem fallen humanity. Praise the Lord, right? And thirdly, Christ willingly gave his life to redeem mankind. That's what this is about. If Boaz is a type of Christ, then this is what it is telling us. It is preparing us. It was giving us insight to what Christ was going to be doing in the New Testament, now that we have the whole Bible, right? So, because of the advantages and disadvantages of fulfilling the obligations of Redeemer, it was necessary to follow an established order. Now, what is that order? You can find that according to Leviticus 25, 48, and 49. Leviticus 25, 48, and 49. You can read that on your own. So the order was, first, if there was a brother, right? In this case, there's no brother. Then there was an uncle. We don't know of an uncle. Or a cousin. And then any other relatives. Okay, so most likely, neither Boaz nor the other closest relative were Elimelech's brothers. But if the other was a closer relative than Boaz, he had the right and the obligation of the redemption. Okay, so let's go to verse 13. Remain this night, and when morning comes, if he will redeem you, good, let him redeem you. But if he does not wish to redeem you, then I will redeem you, as the Lord lives. Lie down until morning. Okay, I guess he said yes to Ruth's question, will you marry me? He said, yes, if I am really your closest relative, your redeemer, then I will do it. But we have to investigate first. There is another kin that is closer than I. So now he's going to do an investigation. But he says to her, as the Lord lives. So with an oath in the name of God, Boaz concludes his promise that he would do whatever he could to redeem her. Implicit in the oath was the Lord's punishment and curse if Boaz did not fulfill what he had promised. All right, so let's continue in verse 14. So she lay at his feet until morning and rose before one could recognize another. And she said, let it not be known that the woman came from the threshing floor. So Boaz's caution was because of Ruth's reputation. So if Boaz was to marry Ruth and redeem Naomi, it was necessary that no one know of this encounter with Ruth until he revealed it himself in negotiation to the closest relative. Okay, so that's the next step. Here in verse 15 he says, and again he said, give me the cloak that is on you and hold it. So she held it, and he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city. So the measure was not specific, 6 measures of barley. It was probably a seah, the third of an ephah, measure of grain. Remember, we saw that in chapter 2, verse 17. So therefore, Boaz's gift was about 44 liters, or twice what Ruth could have gleaned in one day, right? So he's very generous, and he is said yes if he is the kinsman redeemer, if he's the closest kin. So now he's going to go find out. Verse 16. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "How did it go, my daughter?" And she told her all that the man had done for her. And she said, "These 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said, 'Do not go to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" Remember he said that before in 121? Well, the Hebrew Raycon translated here, empty hands, is the same used in chapter 1, verse 21, when Naomi complained that the Lord had made her return empty-handed. No doubt Naomi would now remember that complaint and realize that God was not going to leave it empty. God is good. He's faithful. So verse 18. Then she said, this is this is Naomi talking to Ruth. "Wait, my daughter, until you know how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest until he has settled it. Nay, wait." Literally, sit down. Just sit down. And by advising Ruth to do nothing until Boaz finished what he proposed to do, Naomi demonstrated that she knew Boaz's character as a man who would follow God's plan. Wow. How about when God tells you to wait? No, us women, what, wait? No, I can't. No, I can't wait. I got to help God. I got to say, I got to meet, I got to call. Don't we get ahead of God? We really do. We have to wait. We have to wait on God. And here, this is what Ruth has to do. She has to sit and wait. She can't do anything. There's nothing she can help along. There's nothing that God will let her do. And it's all in His hands. That's what we have to remember as women. It's all in His hands. Whatever situation we're in, and I'm sure it's not the same as Ruth, where we're just ask somebody to marry us by laying at His feet. No. Whatever other situation there might be in our lives, and God says, wait. We just need to wait. Because, He has our best interest at heart. He is sovereign, and He knows all things. And He knows what is best for us. So whatever situation that we have to wait on God for, wait. Just wait. Don't get ahead of Him. Don't do anything He doesn't want you to do. We must wait. So who is Ruth? Well, she's a Moabitess who left her country, her way of life, her beliefs for God, the God of Israel, the God who protects her and provides for her. And we see that He's doing just that. Chapter 1, chapter 2, now chapter 3. Oh, ladies, this is so exciting. He is working out a plan that they didn't know before, and now they get a glimpse of it. Naomi gets a glimpse of it, and she needs a kinsman redeemer. And so Ruth is going to be one of the women that are going to be blessed and taken care of by God. And we see how He's doing it. So when Ruth said, "My God shall be your God." Your God. Sorry, I got mixed up. Your God shall be my God. I mean, that's precious. And now we have seen in these 3 chapters how she's allowing that God to be her God. And she's trusting her mother-in-law. She's trusting Boaz. She's trusting God. Above all, she is trusting God. So we need to trust God. This is focusing on Jesus. This is focusing on His Word. And we need to do the same. Always. Always and forever. Yes. Always. So, until the next time, we're going to see the conclusion of this story, this fabulous story, this exciting story. And so meanwhile, I want us to focus on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith.